Hey everyone, Alan Weaver here. I recorded a video last week about 5 steps that you can do to overcome fear. Several persons have asked me to do a separate video for each step in order to go a little bit more in depth. This is the first of 5 additional segments. So here we go. Making any kind of change takes a minimum of 3 things. You need to know what to do, you need to know how to do it, and you need to know where to go to get the necessary resources. 5 steps to overcome fears share the what. Now, let's look at the how. In 5 steps to overcome fear, the first step I listed was the need for us to understand that fear is a choice that we make. Now, let's define a couple of words. Choice, an act of selecting or making a decision when faced with 2 or more possibilities. Fear, an unpleasant emotion caused by a belief that someone or something is dangerous or a threat, likely to cause us pain or loss. It's one thing to become afraid when something unexpected or something we don't like happens. It's an entirely different thing to remain fearful. When we don't check fear at the door of our heart and mind, eventually it will turn into anxiety. Anxiety means a feeling of worry or nervousness or unease, typically about an imminent event or something uncertain, an uncertain outcome. Now, if our anxiety is left unchecked, it can eventually turn into a phobia. A phobia is an extreme or irrational fear of or aversion to something, like arachnophobia, somebody who's afraid of spiders. So fear can turn into anxiety. Anxiety can turn into a phobia, and these things can have an adverse effect on our body as well as our mind. For many of us, fear seems so much a part of who we are. It's constantly there that we don't feel like we have any other option, that the only choice we have is to be afraid. But if fear and anxiety are a product of our thoughts, then we must change the way we think in order to remove the negative impact that they have on our lives. But how do we do that? Fear is an emotion. Emotions rise from our thoughts, thoughts about ourselves or another person or a circumstance. To change our emotional response, then we must change our thoughts about ourselves, a person, or a circumstance. To change our thoughts, we must change our focus. To change our focus, we must be introduced to or reintroduced to information that will help us see ourselves or the other person or the circumstance from a different perspective. Then we must choose to replace our negative thoughts with the new information. Replacing faulty, fearful, and anxious thinking is critical, and it is an active happening that we must participate in. We spend a lot of time talking to ourselves, and a high proportion of what we say to ourselves is negative, about how we're not capable, how we'll fail, how we don't know enough. I had a story all lined up for this video about my mother and her fear of water, but an unexpected thing happened which I think better illustrates the point. The other day, I had taken my 2-year-old son to my parents' house for a visit. He loves climbing the stairs from the first floor to the second floor. Now, he only climbs up when I'm with him, so as we go up, he often looks back to make sure that I'm right behind him. When we get to the top, we tour the bathrooms and the bedrooms, go wherever he wants to go. Then we come back to the stairs, I pick him up, I tell him how he should never go down the steps by himself, and then I carry him down the stairs back to the first floor. On this occasion the other day, when I went to pick him up to bring him back down the stairs, he said he wanted to walk down. At first, I was a little nervous, but I agreed and reinforced the fact that he should never try to walk down the stairs by himself. He had a wide smile on his face as he said, "Okay, Daddy." I took his hand. We took the first step. Immediately after we took the first step, he froze. He looked down the steps and he pointed and he cried, "It's too far down, Daddy! It's too far down!" Then he reached for me. Instinctively, I began to reach for him, but then I caught myself. Then I said, "It's too far down for you by yourself, but it's not too far down for Noble and Daddy." He stopped crying for a second and he looked up at me, then back at the stairs, And then he started crying again as he reached for me. I can't do it, Daddy! I can't do it! I held his hand tighter and I said, It's okay, Noble. Daddy is with you. We can do it together. I will hold your hand and we will go down step by step. Don't worry, Daddy is not gonna let you fall. He stopped crying again. He looked up at me and then down at the steps. And then he looked back at me and he asked, It's not too far down, Daddy? I smiled and said, Not for Daddy and Noble. I could see his mind working. He's internally debating between his fear and the information that I'm sharing with him. Another moment passed and he said, Okay, Daddy. He held onto my hand tight as we began to go down one step at a time. About halfway down, his grip began to loosen a little bit. A small smile appeared on his face. 2 steps from the bottom, he let go of my hand. 1 step from the bottom, he jumped. He smiled this huge grin, and we both cheered and laughed as he said, I did it, Daddy, I did it! And I said, Yes, you did, Noble. We did it together. And he said, Yes, Noble and Daddy did it together. If you and I are going to overcome our fears, the first thing we need to realize is that fear is a choice. And we can choose to actively replace our fearful thoughts with accurate information about who we are, what we're capable of, and what the situation requires, and how we can accomplish the task. Stay tuned for the second segment next week about owning our fears. Remember, you don't have to be fearless. You just have to fear less. Keep pressing forward towards your purpose. Let's move.